A judge in the case of the ISIS bride who wants to come back from Syria today ruled against fast-tracking that case, but it is still pushing forward.
The President of the United States himself said that you're not welcome back to America. What would you say to him?
I would tell him to study the legal system because apparently I am allowed back. I have papers, I have citizenship.
American-born Hoda Muthana went from being a student in Alabama to leaving her home and going to Syria, where she became an ISIS bride in 2014. In Syria, she had 3 different husbands who were members of the brutal terrorist group known as ISIS or the Islamic State. She had a child with one of them, and she eventually had a change of heart and escaped. And now her father is suing the Trump administration for denying her re-entry to the United States. Here now in a story exclusive is Charles Swift, the attorney for Hoda Muthana. Mr. Swift, welcome. Good to have you here tonight. I guess, first of all, your reaction to the fact that the judge said that he doesn't see any need to fast-track this case.
Well, we were disappointed in one part, but not terribly surprised. To prevail, we had to show that she would suffer immediate and irreparable harm. And that was a difficult question. Although we were disappointed on that part of the ruling, we were encouraged by the judge's comments on the strength of our case, which is another one of the prongs. And he did not rule that our case wasn't strong. Quite the contrary. He indicated...
In what way did he indicate that the case is strong?
Well, he looked at the government's argument. The government's argument is that she's not a citizen, not because she wasn't born here, and not because her father was a diplomat at the time, but the government argues that the fact that Yemen didn't notify them that they'd fired her father from his diplomatic post for 5 months meant he kept diplomatic immunity. That's a very difficult argument for the government to prevail on. It's contrary to the arguments
So just to be clear, just so everyone
past.
Understands, if she's a child of a diplomat, but if he's not a diplomat anymore, which he was not when she was born, as I understand it, then she is not a citizen, correct?
Then no, wrong. If he's not a diplomat, she's a citizen.
She is. Correct. Because if you're the child of a diplomat, then you're, here as a diplomat, you do not become a United States citizen. She claims that she was issued 2 passports and that proves that she's an American citizen. The U.S. government is arguing that they were issued in error. Can you explain why they say that?
Well, their argument now is that the passports were issued to her erroneously because even though they knew at the time that Yemen had delayed, they misinterpreted the law, or somehow, it's hard to explain their argument. It's actually a pretty difficult argument to make, is that they now say our interpretation of the statutes and conventions at play are that he maintained diplomatic immunity for 5 months after he was fired. That's an incredibly dangerous argument, as the court noted.
All right. I want to play a soundbite from Secretary Pompeo, who you are directly naming in this suit. Here's what he had to say.
She's not a U.S. citizen. She has no claim of U.S. citizenship. In fact, she's a terrorist. And we shouldn't bring back foreign terrorists to the United States of America. It's not the right thing to do. President Trump has determined that she will not come back.
So, I mean, part of his argument is that she's a foreign terrorist, that she left voluntarily, that she married 3 different members of ISIS, and that she did that of her own volition. So, in essence, that she gave up her rights as an American citizen when she joined the enemy.
Now, understand, that's not the argument that Secretary Pompeo's attorneys are making in court.
Well, that may be the case. That's what he's saying. And, that is, I think, is what is on most Americans' minds as they listen to this story, that your citizenship and your rights as an American citizen can be violated by your actions. If you turn your back on the country and you go join a terrorist organization, it seems like a pretty good argument that you shouldn't be allowed back into the country.
But it's
because you might pose a threat to the country.
It's a flawed constitutional argument. You can't revoke citizenship on that basis.
Well, they're claiming she doesn't have citizenship.
And that's why the attorneys aren't making it. If one understands, the Supreme Court has already said that the loss of citizenship isn't a punishment. It's conferred by the 14th Amendment. It cannot be taken away absent very unusual circumstances and absent a judicial action, none of which have occurred here.
So it sounds like you feel like you've got a pretty good case.
I think I have an excellent case.
So when do you expect this to move forward? And, do you think that she's in any danger? What kind of contact are you in with her? And how sure are you that she doesn't get back to this country and present a threat to the country?
Well, there's a lot of those. Yeah, I expect the case to move forward not on a emergency basis, but on an expedited basis. I would expect, because there are really only issues of law, this case to be resolved in the next few months, at least at its first stage. With regards to the threat that she may pose if she comes back, I think I put a lot of trust in the ability of law enforcement to prosecute if she's actually committed criminal actions. But we can't remove people from the United States who are citizens because we're concerned they might be dangerous.
No, I hear you.
Think about what might happen on a different group that was considered dangerous under a different president. You go over to France for a couple of days on the holiday, you can't come back. You're dangerous.
I think that's a pretty tough argument. If you're joining ISIS and they're chopping off people's heads, I think that's a pretty clear-cut, I should say, argument that you've joined a clearly dangerous group. But I mean, it all boils down to the citizenship issue.
Well,
I think that's the legal basis of the whole question here is whether or not you win or lose the fight that she's actually a citizen, and then we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not here to defend her actions.
I hear you.
I'm here to defend her citizenship.
Well,
that is two different things.
And she has every right to go through that process, and you are representing her. Thank you very much, Charles Swift. Good to have you here tonight.